Hello and welcome to the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, here with the other host, Tommy Ryan.
I feel like a co-host versus
You're a
another
co-host?
host.
The other, I can call you co-host
Okay.
if you're cool with that. If you're not gonna,
I don't need to be as high as a host.
well, what is
Just a
is there a
co-host.
host and then a co-host, or is there? Can we both be co-hosts? Like both be co-hosts,
Like co-president on The Office.
That's a great idea. So we haven't talked in a couple weeks here, and today is the day after Halloween, All Saints Day, November 1st, 2018, and so you celebrated Halloween a little early.
Yeah, on Saturday.
Yeah, and it was more like a trunk or treat type of thing.
Yeah, caravan that 40 kids all at once ambushed our house.
Everything's done in 45 seconds.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. You go, kids. Get your candy. It's like going to the grocery store, being on the candy aisle in the grocery store. Just pick whatever you want, kids. So, yeah, we had a good time last night. We're in a pretty big neighborhood, and we ended up going out with Connor and McKenna, and Kaylee's old enough that she wanted to go with some friends in the neighborhood. So
Okay.
she's moved on to that, and so that's a new era for us. But she enjoyed doing that, and it was a good night. It was a little warm. It wasn't as I wish it was a little bit more cool, so it felt like the fall. But yeah, it was good. And we did a fire, and we watched our annual Charlie Brown.
Oh, okay.
So we always like doing that right after we go trick or treating. Yeah, so it was a good time. So, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about. I've recently taken some time out doing some coursework and focusing in on our SEO. It's almost, there's periods of time where I'm try to do stuff on my own and learn scrap on my own and pick up things and learn things. And with this, I just wanted to take some courses just to check and see what I'm doing right, what I'm not doing right, and learn a little bit more from industry professionals. So I'm taking a course from a company called Yoast out of the Netherlands, and so I just wanted to sit down with you and share with you some of the things I've learned so far, and just relate it to sort of what our business is doing right now, what things I'm going to change, and what things and why I'm going to change them, and what some of the things I'm doing right versus some of the things I'm not doing so right. And so I ended up getting they've got a set of courses, and I sort of got the bundle together. And so far I've gone through their first sort of like intro course to SEO. So it's sort of like a broad sweep of everything. And right now I'm in the towards the end of the copywriting section, or copywriting course. So this is to help with, how do you produce materials that people want to read and also that they can find, because if they can never find the article, they'll never read it. And so how do you address those types of things? So I think the first thing, getting started with all of this is sort of the background is we do spend we put a lot of content out there. I think in previous conversations you brought this out very well, which is like, how do we deal with all the information inside of our company, and what do we share with people out there? And you, at one point in time, you're like, well, this content goes bad over time, and you take it and try to work with people to get it out onto our website, and then after that, it's like you don't have to really worry about everything every OneNote file that we've saved, everything that's gone out there is just sort of like it's working information, and then we put stuff out on our website, and hopefully it's stuff that people want to read about and can share with the public. And I thought that was a pretty interesting way to focus in on sort of our content and making sure that we're sharing things that we're learning internally with the rest of the world. And for folks who don't know, we do what I do inside of Three Wheel is I have people either do one blog post or one podcast episode per quarter, and that gives us a chance for people to share something, and it really just encourages. I feel like I'm pulling teeth to get it, because everybody's got their normal job and they're not website bloggers. That's not what they consider their normal job. But I think it helps us out as an organization to take some of the things that we've learned and package it up for folks.
Yeah.
So.
It's one of those things that you're not going to do on your own,
Yeah.
but if you have someone that can help create that cadence for you, it becomes a healthy practice.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that as sort of the first thing because I think I've written some things internally to say, what are the types of things that you should write about and share with other people. And I typically let people know, like, if you've gone out and let's say you're on a project and you've Googled for something and you didn't find anything good and then you figured it out yourself. I said, that's great. Whatever you found out, take that information and share it so that the next person who's out there trying to find that information is able to find that from you. And I said, just some of our articles that we've written through the years are really ones where I feel like they did the research and just packaged it up in a way so that they're passing it on to the next person who runs into the same problem. And a lot of our content is what they would classify as informative content. So you can have content, there are 4 primary ways. The ones we focus in on are primarily is informative content. So we're trying to share expertise or things that we've learned. There's also persuasive content. And persuasive content, it might be like a product page. We're trying to convince somebody to do something or convince them, why do this or that. And usually on the main pieces of content that you're putting out on a website, we do a lot of blog posts, but then there's also a lot of people do sort of the content about a product or a service. For us, it would be a service. And we're trying to put out persuasive content for that. Why should you talk to us about doing this? Why is it that we would be the best partner to help out with something along those lines? And that's something I haven't. I mean, we went through a book, a copywriting book of something like how to write copy that sells a while back, and it has sort of a framework for how do you set that up. And I think I'm sort of revisiting my notes from that. And one of the things that I've gotten from this is I need to create something that they call cornerstone content, because we've done a lot of content, put in a lot of, and I'll take just like the Jive migrations as an example, because it's I think a good example for us. And it's been successful for us. So we've written a lot of blog posts, we've done a lot of, we've done presentations, we have an ebook, and I've put all this content out there. And the issue right now is our if you do it and you don't have like one piece of content that Google knows is the thing that is what they call your cornerstone content, then some of your content can compete with each. Like Google will not know which page is really the one that you mean when somebody searches for Jive to Office 365 migrations.
Right.
And so like right now I go and search for it and it brings up my almost one of the original blog posts is the one that's doing the best for it right now. And that might that's good because we have like a post from a long time ago and it gets them started. And so over time I've been updating that post and trying to optimize it where it may lead us to the service that we do for it and make some tweaks on that. But what they suggest to do is to create a piece of content called cornerstone content. And so you would create an online guide to Jive to Office 365 migrations. And that everything would link back to that guide. So within your site, Google's sort of their algorithms are, I know a piece of content is important because people link to that content and sort of how they figure out. It's one component of how they figure out what page is more important than another page, or what website's more important than another website. And so one of the things I'm going through right now is I'm looking at some of the pieces of cornerstone content that I need to create on our website so that I'm putting it out there, and that's that's what I want people to, these are the 4 or 5 things that if they see anything on our website, I want them to see these pieces of content. And so what you would do is you'd create a Jive to Office 365 migration guide. That guide would be something you would highly optimize. You would keep up to date all the time. It would just be an extremely well written piece of content. Everything, it would link off to other articles, but all those articles would link back to that.
Okay.
And so it's your way of showing to Google that this is, when somebody searches for this is my piece of content.
This is
that I
key
want to
authoritative
show.
content.
This is on our website. It's just like it's Google's trying to figure out which content is more important to you on the site, and the content that's more important to you is the one that all these posts link up to and point back to. So that was one of the big things that I've gotten out of that. And so I've got, we're going to do, and we have ebooks, and what I'm going to do is take a look at what we have with regards to like ebooks, and maybe taking portions of that content and creating guides out of them.
Okay. And
reusing some of the content so that it's easy for us to, take some of the stuff. I think I've got all this great content. It's just getting it into a format that makes sense for Google to process and for people to find.
Okay.
That was a big thing that I had gotten out of this. I've also, was doing sort of research on keywords and sort of what do we want to go after. And the thing that they start off with, and this is, I know we're going through the annual planning and talking about this, and you've already heard me bring this up several times, which is, what's unique about us. And so all the coursework is about, you got to start with why are you different than everybody else? Because if you don't really know what that is, then you don't know people, they don't have any reason to go find you.
Right.
If there's nothing different about you, then there's a bunch of other people that are. And so this gets to the, when someone is out there and, for us, I'm typically looking at what problem are they trying to solve? What are they trying to do? And where do I want us to show up? And show up as being very high on the list. They go through, and like part of the class is, it's some obnoxious number where 50% of the time people click on the first link on the first page, and it drops off. It just drops off like after the second or third to like 75% of the time they click on those three. And
right.
then most of the time nobody ever goes to the second page. They really got to be looking for something. And so showing up on that front page, and then that front page you're also competing with AdWords as well, which are sometimes up above it. So for the things that you want people to think of your company as being the best at and unique about, then you really got to show up there.
You've got to tune that.
You've got to tune that. Mm-hmm. It's really, really be focused. And so that's why, like the cornerstone content, Google says, well, I know 3Will's good at these 4 or 5 things. And so they really have, they've got 100 blog posts that are out there that point back to this guide. And they, just all this, you're giving an abundance of reasons to Google, like why these 4 or 5 things are things that make us unique as a service provider. And so part of that is making sure that our site reflects that. And so right now I'm taking, I'm going through the process right now of doing that. And I'm also, some of the other things that I've learned as we've picked up on this is that I'm going away from these. I loved mega menus, and I love the menus and all that sort of stuff. And Google's very focused on mobile. And I know for our stuff, typically the profile is somebody at work at a desktop, probably Googling things. But people could be, somebody could have on their to-do list, we got to get off of Jive and over to Office 365, and could have their mobile phone and just type that in, and that could be what they're on an off hour and just they're doing some research. And so the issue with these menus is that you've got the drop downs, and it just doesn't map very well over to mobile. So, and then also the idea of you can drive somebody down a couple of pages. You don't have to have it all on the home page, which I sort of, it used to be like I had almost like a site map through a menu. Everything was up there. It's like, I want to throw everything in your face so that you can just find it from the menu. And they're just describing how that can, from an experience, it's like, we've talked about like paradox of choice. If you have too many decisions, you can't make a decision. It's paralyzing. So they're really sort of saying, your menu should be the 4 or 5 things why somebody would come to your site. Well, they want to learn more about our services, or they want to learn more about the company, or they're there for finding a job, or, so just putting up and emphasizing what are the things that somebody wants to do, and just have them, you click on it and you're there. And so I'm in the mid part of the process of simplifying our navigation. And then what I've done is I've taken our almost like a site map and put it at the bottom of the page, because people are used to, like, if I can't find something, scroll to the bottom, and also this links up the site as well, where I'm emphasizing to Google what are the important pages on our website as well. So I'm using that and trying to simplify the processes, especially for a mobile user, for how somebody uses our site. So going through some of those types of things, we're trying to make it easier for mobile. Time-wise, I could probably talk I know we've got 5 minutes here or so before our stand-up, but the copywriting stuff, the stuff I'm in right now, is good because they just sort of walk you through the structure of what a good blog post looks like, and how somebody processes reading a blog post. So sometimes, and I think we've going back, the importance of headers and the importance of how you organize and structure something, so that most of the time someone's just scanning it. And so you want it to be, you've got a header that describes sort of what it is, and they're saying the importance of that first sentence, saying what are you going to get out of this? It's almost like, somebody, most of the time people are just going to read that first sentence and either
elevator pitch for the blog.
It's either this thing's either worth my next 2 minutes or not. And I'm going to decide based upon, number one, it looked interesting, so the meta descriptions are important. Meta descriptions I use the Yoast plugin to describe what that page is about. It's sort of like, why would I want to go there? And that shows up on the search engine page, the results page. So you want to have that be compelling, and then that's sort of like, what are you going to get out of reading this? And then the first one is sort of like, what's your main point? I mean, what's your point here? And I'll read more if I think I want to learn more about what your main point is. And then it sort of just drives through, and how creating ordered lists makes things easier for somebody to process, and we're doing I think we're doing a good job with, I've got sort of like at the bottom of each post, it's linked off to a related post, so somebody can sort of go from there to something else that might be interesting to them. But it was really going through the structure. How do you create the appropriate structure? And a lot of it was just, sometimes I think some of our posts are like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and it's not easy for the person to process. So learning some things about that. I think the keyword stuff, I think as we're looking at planning for next year, like yesterday we were on and I'll share this, and then I've got one story and then we'll wrap it up. The keywords should be influenced by what makes us different from everybody else. And so that's why I'm really trying to, and I focus in on search engine. I'm not doing a lot of things with AdWords, so I'm not paying for placements right now. I'm trying to optimize our search engine, because paying for it has sort of two, number one, you have to pay money for it.
Right.
Number two, people don't think it seems like you're trying to be persuasive when you try to place yourself for it. We probably could do a better job, and really across the different networks that are out there, you have to hit people multiple times. So I think there's things we can do in a smart way. But yeah, I'm just, as we look at next year, trying to figure out what are the things that differentiate us. And it's tough if you could just say, we love to solve business problems and we're the best in the world, and, all the things that consulting companies will say about themselves.
You're right.
And
like agile.
We're agile. We've got happy customers. It's just like the rest of the world can say this. And really what people are looking for is, for us, is how are we going to help them solve a specific problem that they might have. And it's got to be something that their own teams can't solve themselves. And it's got to be something that just, especially for us, is they have to go through, and they have to go through the process of bringing us on as a vendor. So it's got to overcome that hurdle.
Right.
It's got to overcome a lot of hurdles for us to be, to actually do project work together. And so you've got to have something that's like, I got to talk to these guys about this because they've done this and they've got, this tooling, or they've got this process, and I know this, and I heard, I saw there was another organization that similar to us that did this, and you just got to really overcome a lot of big hurdles in order for them just to pick up the phone or fill out a form, or just for them to, because they don't want to waste their time either. So the last thing is, we had an interesting call yesterday, and this relates to all of this, which is last night 4:00 yesterday, we took a call from NBC Universal, and I didn't know whether it was related because we're also talking to them about migrating with Jive, and Jeff's working or helping out with that opportunity. And that came up earlier this week, and they reached out to us, and it was about integrating Salesforce with SharePoint. So they'd seen the Trove stuff. Some of the materials are still out there, just like on YouTube, and I don't emphasize it, but people can find out. I mean, you Google, this is from doing my research, we're still show up very high when somebody searches for Salesforce and SharePoint. So this is what somebody was looking at integrating. So we sort of came up, and they reached out to us, and yesterday, by the time I was talking to the guy, he already, he knew more about it than I think most of us inside this company know about, because he had gone through the blog post, and he was describing sort of like, well, I saw you guys had addressed some of the issues with the file upload size and something, and Jeff and I are in there, and like, yeah, and talking to him about it, and I explained to him, I was like, this is something we used to have as a free thing out in the community. It's no longer on the app. So sort of giving all my caveats to, this isn't a product, and this is something we could bring onto projects, and then also trying to, I think for us was, because we'd already been working with NBC Universal for this other migration, was saying, and Jeff mentioned the names, and so I was more of using this as, maybe if we're doing this other work, it'd be easier sort of to bolt this on. If it might be a good opportunity for us to use this asset for them, especially if they were a client that we're doing something else with. And also just makes us seem a little bigger. It's like, we're talking to this group and they're talking to that group.
Right.
And, nobody's heard of Threewill. My head's not that big. So it was just a neat sort of way of triangulating on it. And the reason I mention that is because both of the opportunities are coming from people searching for, somebody searching for a Jive migration, and somebody searching for Salesforce and SharePoint integration. And it leads to these two opportunities that come up that, and from a marketing standpoint, you try to look at the origins of things, how do I get into somebody's mind as being someone who can solve a problem? And I think a lot of it is because we've put content out there, and they were able to find us, and everybody does their research. It's like this guy he's been in the research phase for a while. By the time he came along, it was just like he knows what we're doing, and we put the content out there. And I just want us to continue to emphasize how important it is for us to put content out there about what we do. And even if it's something we're not emphasizing, people find it, which is pretty amazing. So I want us to continue to, as we look at this next year, is to find those things and think about, now this is trying to challenge the group as well. Don't put it into your words, you have to get into the mind of someone who's trying to solve the problem.
Right.
And what are the terms that they're using? And we call our managed services sustainment. Somebody's not searching for that. So what are they searching for? Because if they never find us, and if we're not optimized for those keywords, they're never going to know about us.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I think I'm taking from the course and trying to make sure I share with others. Well, I covered about 99% of the conversations there. I appreciate you listening.
Sure.
It was just still processing some of the stuff. I'm just on the copywriting course. I still have more to go with some of the video stuff and other things that I'm looking at. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
We are past our stand-up time, so we've got time. I have to go jump into another meeting. Appreciate you listening. And if you've learned anything from the Yoast courses or have anything to add, leave a comment at the bottom of the page. And appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Tommy.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.